So we're in test mode.
I love it. All right. Hi, everybody. I was just telling Cyndi how gorgeous her skin looks because it does. And I couldn't be more excited to have her here. It's been a while since I saw her. We were just talking about South by Southwest backstage. But I am so excited because she's just gone through so much with her business. So we're going to get into that. I wanted to give you guys first a few updates because we have lots happening with Female Founder Collective too. We have our applications are now open for our 10th House Beauty and Personal Care cohort. So this is an industry-specific mini accelerator and cohort built for female founders that are ready to scale, raise capital, and lead into the next era of beauty. And as a member of 10th House, you get access to our accelerator program, which is called Founders Operating Manual. It's something that I couldn't be more excited about. It was created on the back of many years of working with you guys and founders from all over the world and in all different industries and trying to figure out what are those key ingredients to ensure success, to bring clarity, and also ensure growth. So this is a 4-week program. It covers your role as a founder, which we all are always questioning and refining, right, Cyndi? Setting up the right KPIs to drive growth, understanding your financials, which you don't have to be a finance person to understand your financials, but as a founder, it's so crucial for growth. And then developing a go-to-market strategy, or in other words, a marketing strategy. So it's actually on top of peer mentorship that we're providing all the time, pitch sessions, in-person and virtual events, and then a vetted resource library. So it is chock full of value that you will for sure get back. And then we also have Female Founders Day, which is our biggest event of the year. That's happening on March 5th. It's in New York City. We're going to have incredible speakers like Joanna Stober, who is the founder of MIDI, which was just announced as unicorn status, which is pretty cool. The founder of Honeypot, Beat Dixon, Ty Haney of Outdoor Voices, Danessa Myricks, Bozoma St. John. But today, I'm super excited to dig in with Cyndi because she's just had the most incredible career as well as journey building her business. It's had many iterations that she'll get into. But Cyndi Ramirez-Fulton is a trailblazing Latina entrepreneur, a beauty visionary, and best known as founder of Chillhouse. Chillhouse is the modern self-care and nail care brand, redefining how people experience beauty and community. It was launched in New York City in 2017, and it evolved from a salon meets wellness destination into a category-shaping lifestyle brand. And as founder and CEO, she led the brand's expansion into major retailers, including Target, Urban, Revolve, and Walmart. And then in January 2026, Chillhouse was acquired by Kiss Beauty Group, marking a major growth milestone while remaining founder-led within Kiss's global portfolio. So super, super huge congrats to you, Cyndi. Can't wait to hear about the next journey. But first, I'm going to go back and start from the beginning because you guys first launched as a service business, but then you pivoted into products down the line. At what point did you actually realize that the brand would live beyond the physical space and actually made you confident to start building products?
Yeah, great question. I think when we first set out to launch Chillhouse, we definitely had grand vision, but we didn't really know what it would be that would really catapult us to being like a national brand or a global brand, really. I will say like our brand itself was always really strong from day one. I always joke that like the salon didn't really like align with the brand and the visuals of it because we were basically like a tiny little shoebox busting at the seams with too many services under like a 1,400 square foot space in the Lower East Side where there was always trash outside and, people like drunk outside of our doors. So it was just always chaotic. But then the brand itself was very peaceful and soothing. And I think it had a lot of promise and legs.
Yeah.
And we tested a few things. We tested candles. We had like a marketplace at one point where we curated products. We've always done brand partnerships, events. We've always been this is like a scrappy mindset, I'd say, like scrappy.
Yeah.
And we were very omni in like our revenue approach, like just the single service model. It was very much like, what can we do to survive and make payroll? So we tested everything, but of course COVID happened. And that's where things really took a big change. We had to close our stores and kind of got forced to think a little bit
How many
different.
stores did you have at that point?
We had two. We had our original. We kept our original. We turned it into a face and body studio because we're like, let's just simplify this one and like not fully close it, and kind of, did a little bit of a rebrand there. And then we opened up our flagship. So yeah, and it was right around the time of COVID. Like they both basically opened or reopened in like November, December 2019. And then 3 months later, that's when COVID hit. Of course, we were just like, that's it, game over for us. But we'd already been thinking about our own branded products. We were working with a turnkey agency at the time that was helping us on like a very kind of high margin, low unit, like low risk kind of perspective, or I guess angle, which helped a lot because we didn't have to pay for an agency at the time. We were kind of working with someone that was making in a lot of their own, their own fees into the actual unit cost. So that was really helpful as a small brand. And that's when we decided that Chill Tips would be sort of like the first, it's technically not like a formulated product, but it's like our first real brand experience in a box, I like to say. Like it's not, what like a skincare product would be, because that requires like years of development. So it was something that we can develop pretty quickly, and get off the ground pretty quickly. And also, of course, solved a major problem at that time, which was that no one had funds. So it was like right product market fit, and also like the perfect product for us because I was very psychotic about the brand DNA and like the visuals of everything. So I never wanted to launch with polish or like another product in the nail category that like didn't allow for me to control the narrative and the experience. So with press-ons, of course, I could pick the perfect shape, or the perfect shape for me, like just what I would want to wear, right? And then obviously the nail art. If you know anything about Chillhouse, you know that like we've always been known for our nail art since day one. We had an amazing, actually like a husband and wife branding duo. So like the nail tech that we used to do our original menu was the wife of our branding agent, like the owner of the agency.
Wow.
So they just like got her
that way. Did you? And I'm assuming you met her through him, or
the nail artist first was who I was mostly like thinking about the lookbook and what the visuals of the nails would look like. And then she connected me with her, who was her boyfriend or fiance. I think it was her boyfriend at the time. Now they're married with, but so that was very, it was like a little kismet kind of connection, and it all came very full circle. And then, when it was like, I was having a conversation with people. I was like, what is our thing? And then it kind of dawned on me that it would be press-ons. And, it was definitely at a time where a lot of the big guys like Kiss, were already, these were like already legacy brands. They've been doing it for decades. And it was right for a fresh, new, young brand to come in and do something a little bit differently. And so we were definitely one of the first brands, I'd say, that, took nail art seriously on a press-on nail experience and made it affordable. I think a lot of brands have been tried, or kind of like salon owners have tried to do it, but they don't maybe have they don't know how to like do it on a mass production scale. We kind of were able to, work with this agency at the time and do it on like a small unit run and kind of slowly build from there.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Did you already have e-com when you started?
We did. We did. So during COVID, we actually had our e-com, and we were selling a lot of polishes. We were curating different brands. We were selling a lot of nail care. So that was very indicative too.
It's not private label before this.
No, correct. It was all pretty much curated, or if it was private label, it was like your candles or something that's a little bit more like turnkey, private label vibes.
Got it. Because the other thing I was going to ask is, as founders of, call it fitness studios or other nail salons or hair salons, sort of service-based businesses with retail components, how, if they ever might want to get into products, but they're not sure, how do you recommend sort of starting that exploration, or what things should they start to put into place in order to be in position to be ready to launch product if they ever want to down the line?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to really hone in on what that one thing you're known for is. Kind of like how Sophie Pavitt is known for treating acneic skin, and Barbara Sturm was known for her like vampire facial or whatever it was that kind of like set her apart, and then have that be the thing that, okay, how do I bottle this into an experience that I can now take it, obviously for my clients, can recreate this at home if they can't come in every month because it's expensive, or of course take it to like a mass scale. But it's always really in identifying that one thing that you're like very, very much known for, very similar to a brand. So I think you have to think of your own service-based business similar to like how you would your product brand, because every product brand has a hero. So
Yeah.
you have to think like a service as a hero, and then everything else is like a supporting part of that experience. That's
And
probably how I do it. If I had to I didn't think that way, but
because I'm assuming like you've always been really good with social media, right? Like that's been an area that I feel like you
like
were
I'm
early,
bad at it
maybe
now.
early to adopt. So what, like in terms of Chill House, what did your social footprint look like before you launched your product? Because I'm sure that also would be super helpful for
Yeah.
these companies if they ever do choose to go into physical product.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely expand on your social presence and all the things. I mean, I definitely had maybe a little bit of an upper hand in that I myself was kind of like a quote unquote influencer before having Chill House. So I had an audience. I drove them to follow Chill House. I did a lot of teasing months before. I had about like an 8,000 or 9,000 person audience at the time of launching. So that was kind of nice. I definitely think that certainly helped. So yeah, of course, if you have a service-based business now, you need to be growing it the same way you would any other business, I think. TikTok is obviously a great place to do that, where small businesses can really thrive through the algorithm and kind of like the location kind of, power that it provides. And then of course, like I think that would certainly help with continuing to build your brand.
And then I have an audience question in terms of asking as a sort of follow on to that. In that experience of translating Chill House as experiential, I don't know if you heard the airplane flying overhead. With the doors open, it's very loud. But in terms of translating Chill House as experiential, in-person energy, right? Like that was a very distinct energy that you shared that you had in your retail space. What do you wish you had done, like onto retail shelves? What do you wish you had done sooner? So, like when you made that transition into physical product, was there anything that you're like, if we had done this, it would have been even better? Or,
Yeah. Okay. So I think from the very beginning, our brand DNA was very strong and injected into our products already, because we did have our nail art and anything from the store, basically like the first, let's say the top 5 designs, they made it onto our first few press-ons that we ever created. So all of that was pretty, like if anything, like the brand DNA was very much there and was very strong. So I wouldn't say I would have fixed that, but what we did find that we had issues with, and this is a very specific situation because we're in nail care and we're in color and design, and so this might not translate to everyone that's on this call. But what we found and issues with is that we were very siloed into this kind of pastel millennial colored universe. And we actually had to be way more than that. We had to appeal to people that wanted nude. We had to appeal to, someone that loved brights and neons and deep colors and burgundies and greens. And we did not have the brand to support that. So we actually did an exercise later into the life cycle of Chill House. I don't even know how we made it through with like so much different color, kind of always competing. But we eventually had to be like, all right, we have to get rid of, this is so silly, but like we had dark blue or like a navy blue as our like primary font color, which is it's a disaster. Like don't use any other color but black as your primary font color. It's just you're setting yourself up for potential disasters in the future with like collabs.
what makes it such a disaster?
Well, because like, okay, so navy blue, how is that supposed to, I don't know, match like a neon yellow or neon orange, like looking like a sports team,
Right.
It's just
it's hard to mesh with other things.
Yeah. And we had like, we still leaned into our peach, but we just had way too many pastels. And so when it came down to fall season, I was like, how do I design these like brown boxes next to these like peaches? And then how do I do summer? And so that was like a big exercise in being totally okay with editing your brand a bit and like kind of thinking about the future of your brand or the future of your products as it pertains to where your brand sits now and making some tweaks accordingly. So that was like a big exercise for us like 2 years ago.
It's so
Which
interesting. You don't even think about those kind of things, but you're so right. And we're actually in the midst of a rebrand right now with ourselves, and like that was something that I brought up, is the usage of like black and cream or black and white as your primary, because then that way you can mesh with a lot of different other. It just gives a lot more flexibility. Another question I had is just in terms of, there's a lot of advice out there, obviously telling founders to be product first, but then very little detail about what that means in practice. Can you tell us a little bit about what for you product first brand looks like?
Yeah, it was interesting.
You gave, which is a great one too.
The what?
Beyond the example you just gave, which is also a great one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it was a hard shift for us, to be completely honest, and we're still kind of going through the motions of figuring out how we want to present or like the full story. But I guess product first is building with product in mind, and I didn't build with product in mind, I built with brand in mind. And so I'm always now kind of like tweaking that mentality, because nail care in general is like such a product first category. Historically, all of our competitors, some of them have brand faces, yes, but mostly all of them lead with product, innovation, education, all those things. Whereas like we've never been like an education-based brand, and now we're trying to like retroactively fit that so that it satisfies our category, but without losing our brand identity. So we are very like, of course, founder led. We do a lot of storytelling around our origin story, because we think that's a really like nice defining quality about Chillhouse that sets us apart from our competitors. We have so many people like, I'm not spending $16 on this. Well, it's like, well, you're also buying into like everything we've built. You know, you're not just buying nails. You can get nails off of Amazon. You know, you can buy crappy nails on Shane. It's a bigger thing, right? So yeah, for product first, I think as a whole, like I think it's important if you're thinking about a brand first brand, to always keep, of course, product as like the main driver when it comes to innovation, when it comes to how you're storytelling. But mostly, yeah, I think for us, it's kind of like a combination of holding on to like what makes us unique and special, while also making sure that people that don't know us from a hole in the wall understand why they need to buy our product. And obviously the product has to be the best it could be in order for us to do that, because a lot of people don't care about the rest of it. So we like to have both elements. But of course, like, innovation is the most important thing with anything you do, and like making sure the product is the best it could be.
Talk to me a little bit more about the education piece. Because I think there's so many beauty brands out there, and brands in general, that struggle with that piece, because they're like, well, in order to use my product the right way, you have to do it this way. And especially like with, like, I'm even looking at, your chill tips and going, okay, how would I instruct my daughter to put those on? 'Cause she like loves your chill tips, or how do I do it precisely? Because I'm so bad at I've never been able to give myself a manicure. Like, heaven forbid, I try to paint somebody else's nails too. But what does that look like for you in terms of education, and what have you found to be successful in multiple channels in terms of helping convert and accurately sort of explain what and how to use your product?
We're like always, I'd say we're always changing our like storytelling strategy. And like right now we just onboarded a couple of people on the team that we're making some tweaks, because I don't think education is something we do extremely well. I think we do it very well in the beginning when we're introducing a product, and then somewhere along the lines we forget to continue educating. So it's really just kind of having a really strong like rotation of all of your pillars, and making sure that you're hitting all of those notes. Like for us on our pillars, which we just refreshed, I'm going to read some notes here because we just did this. It's educational, proven results. So showing like before and afters, or showing like real customers giving real feedback on results. Community, of course. So showing people in their own element, kind of self-expression mode through our either designs or our colors. Who is Chillhouse, and kind of like bringing in our brand persona into it. And then I think there's six pillars. Funny, quick trends. So of course, always being able to pop in and like jump in on a trend, or like some kind of being able to jump in on a pop culture reference, right? Bad Bunny, like going like this, like we didn't do this, but like Bad Bunny, at the Grammys, like with his like, 10-year pause. And then the last thing would be like a service product focused feature. So not necessarily education, but like a spotlight on like a specific color and like that sort of thing. So I don't think you have to only educate. I think you have to actually hit so much more than that, because a brand really is like a living, breathing person. We're not teachers, we're people. Like brands really are like individuals. So I think it's important to treat a brand like an actual human, and show the different parts of the personality. And one of them is to educate, because it's obviously our job to sell the product. So, yeah.
But I love that you put a framework in place in order to help you and your team sort of guide each other on, okay, here's where we're going to educate, and then we're going to make sure we show the before and afters. We're going to make sure that we have maybe humor infused in it, so that you don't have to be so rigid to that, but that way you make sure you have a balance in what you are putting there.
Exactly. Like, let's not overdo it here. Let's just make sure that there's a little bit of everything happening at any given time.
Cover off on all the things we need to. I wanted to ask about creators and how you guys work with creators or leverage creators in order to build the brand and storytell with you, because I think that's such an important part of any consumer brand today. And I think you guys have probably been very efficacious with that. So wanted to get your POV there too.
Yeah, I mean, we've always, of course, kept community, and I guess I use the word community because not everyone's a creator, at the forefront of everything we do, from the flagship or the physical store with the services, down to, of course, like any innovation that we have and kind of testing prior to launch. I'd say, we're still kind of figuring out exactly what like the perfect mix is, because there are so many different ways to go about expanding, especially now that we're entering so much mass retail, making sure that we're hitting like just all these different kind of touch points as far as how people are talking about us. Like, it's not just us controlling the narrative, but like, how do we continue putting out a message that like any creator that comes along like can kind of know exactly what they are supposed to be saying on behalf of us. So yeah, ambassador programs, we're working on refreshing ours. We had one like a couple of years ago that we kind of put on pause to do like another type of program. We've done like a lot of creator type programs where we brief them with certain things, launches, or seasonal drops, things like that, where they then kind of create on behalf of that, the expectation for that month. And they do that like on a monthly cadence, and we kind of use it for our own content. There's like different agreements in place. I'd say the one that we care about the most is like having UGC versus influencer. We just find it to be better as far as like how much your dollars go a bit further, because you're able to use that in ads without having to, of course, like double spend or I mean, I know firsthand, like influencers are very expensive. So I think micro and
UGC, can you define UGC versus influencer? Like just how you like what platforms you might use and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, UGC creators are basically their entire jobs. Like a lot of them do this as their full-time work, is to create brand content for brands. And they basically, you give them a brief. This is what I need. Here's the usage. Okay, what's your quote? It can range anywhere from 500 to 1,000 to 1,500, depending on the ask. I'm sure even higher, depending on how much content you need. But generally, it's like a little bit more affordable, because you're not asking them to post. And people treat, of course, their platforms like their billboards. So it's a different thing. It's like an influencer treats their platform like a billboard. You have to pay according to that spot. And otherwise, it's like, people treat that as a profession. They maybe make $200 an hour, for example. It takes them 30 minutes to make that. Maybe they still bill me $200 for it, but it's so fast, it's a quick thing for them.
And
So
you find that still efficacious with
yeah,
just a regular person, not like an influencer?
yeah. I mean, a lot of them are voiceovers. Again, it depends on, everyone has a different product. For us, a lot of them are hands. A lot of them aren't using their faces. A lot of them are just doing voiceovers, or a lot of them are just doing videos that are vibey, like with like people lighting. So it depends. But it's only efficacious if you have the team that's editing these things to actually work in your favor for all these different moments and kind of using them in an evergreen fashion, not just for ads. So that's where we're trying to figure out how to like make sure we're, utilizing all the stuff that's in the archives and not just like continuing to spend and invest on creators and more content and photo shoots, right? So it's like a balance. I think it's fun to always be creating, but you will end up having so much content if you ask for the right things up front, that you can use them in many different ways, whether that's like throwing a hook on top that's like says one thing and you test it and then maybe it does well, and then kind of like you continue to write that out, or you test another one with a totally different message. Do you know what I mean? And that's the nice thing about social these days. Like, while it feels very overwhelming, it's actually in a way, you can use it to your advantage, and that like not everyone sees your content. So you can actually be like, you can post as much as you want. You can test. You don't have to be as precious with it. So I think brands need to be treating social the same way.
Not being so precious about everything. I'm just trying things out. I agree. What about you in terms of, because a lot of times now you think it's like the founder feels so much pressure to be the face of the brand. And I do, statistically, and the data shows that the founder being out there on behalf of their brand really helps to grow it. Can you talk a little bit about your role, and then in terms of how much time you invest in it vis-a-vis like letting creators be part of it? And do you think it's that integral, or do you think you can do it without like being center stage?
I mean, I'd love to get to a place where I don't have to do as much forward-facing stuff, of course. But I mean, it really depends. I think if someone were to ask me, like, should I do it? It's really like a personal decision. It's, does it come naturally to you? And if it doesn't, I would say probably stay away then, because it is a very mentally challenging part of running a business, especially nowadays, where it's like the content is like the most important thing. And I'm like, but I'm supposed to be hiring my new director of marketing. Like, this is top priority. Like, I can't be like making your silly little like, TikTok, but it's also kind of fun. It keeps things light. You just have to have in my opinion, the right team to support on like the real business stuff in order to be able to be that kind of founder in your business these days. Cause it's really like at the level that like, is it required of me these days? And the only reason I'm able to do it now is because, yes, we've been acquired by Kiss. They handle a lot of our financials now. Not that I ever fully handled our financials. My husband actually is the one that does most of that stuff, but there is a little bit of lightness now that has come from the acquisition that allows me to be show up to work with that creative mindset versus like scarcity, like fight or flight, which was my life pretty much up until the acquisition.
But before the acquisition, before you
I was a facing brand, but it wasn't, I don't think, to this level where I was expected to post all the time, or, now I have a 3-year vision board deck that I presented to my board and even the team, and like on the board, it's like, I have to, be on like 5, I put like expectations onto myself of how I have to present myself to the world now. And it's very different than how I used to present myself. And so I have to, think about that and like think about Cyndi as the business plan a little bit more. So, I mean, I enjoy it, but I always say like, I dream of a day that I don't have to do it, like for my business to really succeed. And I don't think personally at this point now that it's needed, because I do think that the product stands on its own. The story stands on its own. I feel very confident in that. But for so long, I wasn't sure that I could get us there without me being the one that really drives it.
Right, right. Well, I think you bring up a great point, though, that team's really important and that you can't, as a founder, be
Yeah.
expected to do all this stuff simultaneous to running the business. I wanted to ask you about entering wholesale and retail because I think that's a really big turning point and watershed moment for a lot of beauty brands. Can you talk about some of the non-obvious mistakes you see founders make or that you potentially made?
I'd say not really being supported from like a forecasting, supply chain, even logistics standpoint, like not having all of that infrastructure and all those bells and whistles ironed out. Without those, everything falls flat. Like you can have a big shiny PO, but if you don't fulfill as a vendor, you won't be returning. And that was always like something that we were very fearful of getting right, and sometimes we didn't. And thank God we made it through. I think our sales definitely helped with that. You know, the fact that we were a top performing brand, had top performing products, and so there was a little bit more forgiveness there. But not everyone is going to get as lucky as like a Chill Tips situation that, you know, at the time was felt very different than the rest of the wall. You know, we came in with 4 different like vibrant colors where the rest of the wall was white and pink. And so we stood out and everyone was like, "Ooh," like so exciting,
Yeah.
like the brand is here. That's not going to be the case for everyone because a lot of brands require a lot of education. A lot of brands are, of course, not visuals first that have like something that draws people their eyes to that product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you know, it's hard. Some products are definitely different in how they go in line than others. I will say, yeah, of course, not having this is more obvious, but I don't, maybe like people not having enough of a go-to-market strategy with their like major retail, like not every retailer will require like massive like launch moment. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily like scream from the rooftops if it were like an indie retailer, you know, maybe like back in the day a little bit more, but with your mass retailers, or if you do have like, you know, that moment in Revolve or like something that's a little bit more specialty, but still like a big deal, you do need to come up with some sort of go-to-market strategy the same way that you would like launch a new product. And I don't think, I think that's where some brands may fall short. It's that they don't think of it as like a full 360 launch. Even I'll use Chill House as an example. We had so much going on at the end of this past year and we launched into Walmart. And we had so much going on with Target. They had like a very weird year. We had like a lot of softness happening in our like end caps because of their weird year. And we just were kind of like, well, we don't want to upset Target because we're already kind of soft this year and comparatively to the years prior. So we're like, let's not shout from the rooftops that we entered Walmart. So we were very, very light with our promo with Walmart. And as a result, they were like, guys, what's going on? Why are you not, you know, where's the love? So now we're like, okay, we have a lot going on this year and we got you. But if that's not your situation, you have to be like, you know, ready to go and very, very proud of that partnership and treat it with like the respect it deserves because it is a big deal.
Yeah. I hear that though all the time from founders that the hardest part is not necessarily getting into the retail doors, and that is a huge accomplishment and a monumental moment, yes, but it's just the beginning, because if you don't succeed and there's not velocity on shelf, then you're done, and then it's much harder to get back in, if ever. Correct. Right, so it's like you have to make sure
you don't think you can keep up with it. You know, if you're a small brand and they don't know that you're well funded, they don't know if you have the right team to help you with the actual logistics. I think that's the other thing. A lot of big retailers are a little fearful of bringing on small brands for those details because, yeah, you can really flop, not only from a sales standpoint, but from like a logistics standpoint. And
how did you change your logistics when you went into retail? Like, did you bring any particular individuals on, or did you work with any outside agencies?
Yeah, I'm forgetting the agency's name. Hey Group. HAE Group. We worked with them. They were recommended to us by brands that were of a similar revenue, bracket as us. So we thought like that would be a good fit because they were kind of fractional in their fees, and it wasn't like bringing on a full-time logistics partner or in-house employee. But they really got it, and they helped us iron out all those details. And I will say, with like a major retailer like a Target or Walmart, you obviously need a broker. That's something we didn't really know for like our first kind of like test run. And I should have engaged, even for the test, I would say engage a broker from the get-go. That way you're just set up in their systems better, and like it feels a little bit more seamless. You'll have so many questions, and it's, as a founder, you're going to have to run a business but then also do this, so it's going to be very, very challenging and overwhelming. So
where do you find those brokers? Like, is Target or Walmart, are they giving you a list of like, here are the people we recommend you meeting with, or other founders?
So a lot of founders do it. I mean, founders can do it in different ways. Let's say you have a product that has a little traction on .com and maybe has gone viral a couple of times on TikTok, but you haven't heard from any of the retailers. You can probably go to a broker. There's a lot of them. A lot of them are in Minnesota because that's where Target is. They all compete with each other, but they all kind of do similar things. Some like can sell you better than others, but it's a commission-based partnership. So kind of nice that it's not like an upfront cost to you. It's just whatever your percentage of sales will go to, like 3% to 5% is kind of like, I think 3 is a very low end. I'd say 5% is more realistic for like a smaller brand. But yeah, they are pretty easy to find, probably. I mean, I can spit out a few if you're interested. But what was the second part of the question? Just like, what do they do for you?
Basically, yeah. What do they do for you, and like, how do you find them? Were the two
Okay, yeah. They can help anything from like forecasting, they're reporting for you, they're helping you get ready for line reviews, all the things. They're there to really support you, and of course, they're motivated by sales. So anything that you kind of need from them. A lot of them also have more of like the digital part of their agency that helps with bidding, like media spend on the .com. So you also, of course, want to make sure that you're not just thinking about your inline, you're also thinking about your .com. And so a lot of that is all like, with the growth teams within those broker agencies.
Got it. And I want to ask you, because we don't have too much, we have 5 minutes left. I want to go into team, even though that's like a whole big thing, I know. And then I want to talk a little bit about your acquisition as well, and just the sort of journey to that. So the first question is really about team members. And what did you look for when you were hiring early team members, and who were like some of the initial people that you hired? Mm-hmm. And how do you ensure they extend your vision? And then how do you find really great talent?
Yeah. It's kind of like a mixed bag. I'd say when we were first getting started, and I'm saying first, like, let's say, from product timeline forward, so last 5 years, I'd say generalists are very important to hire. And even now where we are, I think it's important to hire like people that are kind of entrepreneurial in their mentality, where they're not afraid to pick up on certain things. And, especially if I'm speaking mostly to startup founders right now, generalists are like going to be your best friends, but then they can only get you so far. So specialists, when you're in like beginning to see growth mode, specialists, whether that's contractors or fractional team members, are going to be really important. And then I'd say when you're a little further along, like where we are, where we're getting to like the phase where we're in fast growth, but we're also like in like a place where everything's very critical, where we need like full dedicated attention, and then we have a little bit more money to get the right people. Like that's when you really hire like the in-house directors, C-suites. And so we're like getting there. But for a while we were kind of like generalists, and as long as they're like, very enthusiastic about the brand and we're a good culture fit and really like understood the vision, then that's really what I looked for the most. And just someone that, wasn't scared to get like their hands dirty. Those were my favorite hires. And now it's like, someone that's going to teach me a lot more than I know, because I certainly don't know everything, and definitely don't want to pretend I do. And so, yeah, someone that comes with like a lot of experience in seeing similar growth with a similar brand, whether that's someone that has worked with the same retailer as us or a Sephora, for example, brand. Um, those are the people we're looking for, because we've tried looking for other people that maybe come from agency experience, and it's just not the same. Like, you need people that have done the in-house thing for those key years. Yeah, so that's kind of like my employee thesis
Did
right
you
now.
give them any tests to sort of make sure they could do the job, right?
We always do like little projects. If it's a big job, I'll give them a project. Even I feel like with interns, you have to give them a little project. Even with UGC, we give people projects, and yeah, so there's always a project part of the hiring process, and it's about like a 3 to 4 interview step process at least.
Yeah. I find that so important because some people interview really well and then other people, and they might interview really well and then not actually be able to do the work in the way that you need them to. I
Exactly.
want to talk about your acquisition because
Mhm.
obviously just happened. I really have sort of like a two-part question, and that's that before the acquisition, were you consciously building Chill House to be acquirable? That's part one. And then looking back, what decisions do you believe best contributed to making Chill House be attractive as an acquisition?
Yeah. Okay, short answer, because I know we don't have a ton of time. So no, we did not build Chill House to be acquirable at like really at all. We When we first sought out to raise money for the original concept, it was on a service-based business where it was a what do you call it? Single unit finance, or yeah, round. I forget how my husband calls it
Yeah.
that this specific way because he comes from the hospitality business. The way we did our fundraise was very much like how you would raise for like a little hospitality restaurant, bar, something or other. It
Very
wasn't for like
different.
a with product. Very, very different. There was an idea that there would be distributions. There wasn't like a, oh, like you'll, cash out when we do like a series A and there's an option for a secondary, or, there was none of that, or an acquisition sort of as part of the pitch strategy. So no, we didn't set out to do that. In fact, like that was part of the big struggle, because we're like, okay, we don't have a product and we don't have a franchisable business. Then having a service-based business that's exitable is really hard, unless, PE maybe is interested in buying up all these single service businesses, or just a
There's a
service-based
lot of
business.
them, or if it's
Like,
franchised or
they
yeah.
are, like Sarah from Y7, was able to successfully exit without having to franchise, but that's hard. Those are like rare, I think, businesses to get acquired. And if they are, I mean, maybe they exist, but I don't know that model. I've only ever really heard, of course, about like the brands, the beauty brands that exit, after having like 100 million in revenue, right? We didn't have that much revenue when we got acquired. So we're still pretty early in our life cycle, considering, having sold, but it was an interesting conversation. It wasn't intended to be an acquisition conversation. It was intended to be we were like raising for a series A. And the way it kind of just worked out was that we're just like, we'll just sell you the brand. I felt like I was ready for that. And as long as I can continue to control the brand vision, and they still very much, I mean, they said that they bought the brand for me, like, which was everything I needed to hear. They were interested in me and having my face be the me being the vision behind the vision, the leader behind all of it. And so I wasn't nervous to pass it off this early, because that was always my fear. And that was definitely not the intention. Like I said, they were literally fundraising when this all started to happen. And so, yeah, I'd say, for anyone that's thinking about it now, it's definitely think about if you want to, sell one day. And one of the things I'd recommend, even if you're not sure, is always keeping everything pretty organized, as far as like what would be in like your due diligence paperwork and like your folder, because that shit is intense and it'll eat up like a whole year of your life easily, if you're messy from the start. So just
Yeah.
having having everything really like, I know it's hard to be an organized person sometimes when you're running a business, but just having all this kind of like ready to go, so you're able to have those conversations well.
Yeah, a data room. Starting a data room. Even if you haven't fundraised, I think it's hard to have a data room, right? Because you're just not required to have the same things, to be honest. Now having bootstrapped a company, and then the difference between what you have on hand in that versus when you have a VC backed company is night and
Very,
day.
very
Yeah.
exactly. Not everyone's gonna run their businesses with that in mind, but that's my point. I guess you should think of it that way, because maybe one day you will want to visit it. Why not? Like just having it in case you are going to enter some version of a fundraise conversation too.
And just if you are not VC backed, then you probably have to be profitable, which means that you have to have really good financial hygiene. This is something that we talk about in Founders Operating Manual. It's so, so, so important. And we help you to like create the foundation of everything that you need in order to run a business successfully. But Cyndi, this has been awesome. My one last thing for you, and because I know we're over, is any piece of advice that you have. I always like asking founders this, founder to founder, and looking back at your journey and the points that you're most proud of. What would you say to founders that are just starting out?
What am I most proud of, or just what's
what piece of advice do you have, just like in thinking about your own journey of what has been really integral to you in finding success along the way?
I don't know if this seems a little predictable, but yeah, just building an army of really incredible fellow founders around you. I think if I didn't have a lot of people that I can tap to that were in similar stages of their careers, maybe a couple of years ahead, I always joke, it's like, yes, we all want to support each other, but I'm actually kind of like, a lot of my friends are like, they're my mentors, even though they're kind of like at similar stages. They definitely were like a year or two ahead of me. And so it's always about aligning yourself with the right people to, lean on, of course, at this stage, and always, but especially when you're just getting started, because it's very, very, very hard, of course. And you need people that like really understand you and you can lean on and cry on every now and then.
Yeah, I love that. You guys, we did not tell her to say that, but on that note, our beauty cohort is live. Our applications are live. So if you are in beauty or personal care, definitely apply. And if you want to meet your best founder friend, come to Female Founders Day on March 5th, because like those are those moments where we have people that have been coming year after year and they make it a trip. We have people coming from other countries that come together, and like this is their moment where they're really investing in themselves and their business and their community network around them. But I couldn't agree more on the network piece. It's so, because there are going to be things that come up that nobody else, not your family members, not your best friends for life, are going to understand, because they're just not in it. And coming at it from a corporate lens is just incredibly different context, as you guys have probably already seen. So thank you so much, Cyndi, for being so vulnerable and open and sharing such great advice. And congrats again on your amazing business. We're so proud of you.
I'm so happy to chat with you. Great seeing you as always. And thank you everyone for tuning in on a crazy Thursday. Back to where we go. Thank you. Have a good